Imagine this. You're sitting in your home on a peaceful Sunday afternoon. The sun is out. Kids are playing in the plaza. Everything feels normal. Then the ground starts shaking. But here's the thing. You felt earthquakes before. You live in Peru. This is just another one, right? Wrong. Because 45 seconds later, you hear it. A sound like thunder. Except it's not coming from the sky. It's coming from the mountain. And when you look up, you see a wall of ice, rock, and mud 3 stories high racing toward your town at 200 miles per hour. You have 3 minutes to live. This is what happened in Yungay, Peru on May 31st, 1970. And what I am about to tell you is one of the most devastating natural disasters you've probably never heard of. If stories like this fascinate you, hit that subscribe button right now. I cover disasters, survival, and the incredible resilience of the human spirit every week. Let me paint you a picture of where this happened. Yungay was a small town in the Ancash region of Peru. About 25,000 people lived there. Beautiful place, nestled in a valley in the Andes Mountains, with the massive peak of Huascarán looming above it. Huascarán is the highest mountain in Peru, 22,105 feet tall, covered in glaciers and ice year-round. The people of Yungay lived in its shadow their entire lives. They knew the mountain. They respected it. But they also trusted it. Here's what most people didn't understand. That mountain was a loaded gun. The Ancash region sits on the Nazca Plate, which is constantly pushing under the South American plate. This creates the Andes Mountains. It also creates massive seismic activity. Earthquakes happen here all the time. But in 1970, nobody fully understood what happens when you combine a major earthquake with millions of tons of ice sitting on an unstable mountain slope. They were about to learn. It's 3:23 p.m. on a Sunday afternoon. Peru is playing against Bulgaria in the World Cup. People are gathered around radios. The streets are full. It's a normal, happy day. Then it hits. The earthquake starts at 3:23 p.m. and 19 seconds. Magnitude 7.9. The epicenter is in the Pacific Ocean, about 35 kilometers offshore. Think about it this way. A 7.9 earthquake releases energy equivalent to about 6 million tons of TNT. The ground doesn't just shake, it liquefies. Buildings don't just crack, they explode. In Yungay, people run into the streets. Standard earthquake response: get out of buildings, get to open space. Some people start running toward the cemetery on a small hill at the edge of town. It's higher ground, seems safer. That decision saves their lives, because 45 seconds after the shaking starts, something catastrophic happens on Huascarán. Here's what the earthquake did to that mountain. A massive chunk of the glacier breaks free. We're talking about 50 to 100 million cubic meters of ice, rock, and snow. That's roughly 13 billion gallons of material. It starts falling, and here's the terrifying part. As it falls, it picks up speed. It picks up more debris, more rock, more ice. It becomes a churning, grinding monster of destruction. Scientists call this a debris avalanche, but that phrase doesn't capture the horror of it. One survivor described it as a wall of mud and death. The avalanche travels 11 miles from the peak of Huascarán to Yungay. 11 miles. How fast? Studies done afterward estimated 200 to 250 miles per hour. Let that sink in. This wasn't lava slowly oozing down a volcano. This was faster than a Formula One race car, carrying billions of pounds of rock and ice. The people in Yungay had about 3 minutes from the moment the avalanche started until it hit the town. 3 minutes. Some people heard it coming, that sound like thunder. Some saw the dust cloud rising. Some ran. Most didn't make it. This story gets even more intense. If you're finding this valuable, take 2 seconds and smash that like button. It helps more people discover stories that matter. The avalanche hit Yungay at approximately 3:26 p.m. It buried the entire town under 30 to 50 feet of mud, rock, and ice. 20,000 people died, gone in minutes. The town of Ranrahirka, which was in the avalanche's path before Yungay, was also completely destroyed. Another 5,000 people dead. Let me give you some perspective. The entire earthquake killed an estimated 70,000 people across Peru, but this single avalanche in this one valley accounted for about 25,000 of those deaths. One event, one mountainside collapsing, 25,000 lives erased. Only 300 people survived in Yungay. You know how? Most of them were in that cemetery I mentioned earlier. The small hill was just high enough that the avalanche flowed around it. Imagine that. You survived because you ran toward a cemetery. One survivor was a young boy who was at a circus when the earthquake hit. The circus was on slightly elevated ground. He watched the avalanche bury his entire town, his family, everyone he knew. Another survivor described being picked up by the debris flow and riding it like a wave before being deposited on high ground, injured but alive. These are the stories that haunt me. The randomness of survival. The luck. The horror of watching everything disappear. Okay, let's break down what caused this disaster, because understanding this matters. 'Cause 1. The earthquake. The Nazca Plate subducts under the South American plate at about 7 centimeters per year. That constant pressure builds up. When it releases, you get massive earthquakes. The 1970 earthquake was a megathrust earthquake, one of the most powerful types. Magnitude 7.9. Cause 2. The unstable mountain. Huascarán had glaciers sitting on steep slopes. The rock underneath was fractured. The ice was heavy. This is called a glacial hanging slope. The earthquake destabilized it. Simple as that. Cause 3. The geography. The valley below Huascarán acted like a funnel. Once the avalanche started, it had nowhere to go but down this narrow channel, picking up speed and debris. Think about it this way. You've got the perfect storm. Seismic activity, unstable ice, steep slopes, and a valley that concentrates the destruction. This wasn't a freak accident. This was geology waiting to happen. The immediate aftermath was chaos. Peru's infrastructure was devastated. Roads destroyed. Hospitals collapsed. Communication lines down. International aid started arriving within days. The United States, Soviet Union, and multiple other countries sent rescue teams, medical supplies, and food. But here's the brutal truth. There wasn't much rescuing to do in Yungay. The town was under 50 feet of debris. There was nothing left to rescue. The economic impact was staggering. Peru lost billions in infrastructure, agriculture, and lives. The Ancash region was the agricultural heartland. That was gone. The psychological impact? Unimaginable. Entire families wiped out. Communities erased. Survivors dealing with trauma that would last generations. Peru declared the site of Yungay a national cemetery. They never rebuilt on the same location. The new town of Yungay was built nearby, but the old site remains a memorial. You can visit it today. Palm trees mark where the main plaza used to be. They were the only things tall enough to survive above the debris. So what did we learn? What changed? 1. Early warning systems. Peru invested heavily in seismic monitoring. They built earthquake early warning systems. Not just for earthquakes, but for avalanche risk. Scientists now monitor glacial stability on Huascarán and other peaks. They measure ice movement, temperature changes, and structural integrity. 2. Evacuation planning. Towns near dangerous mountains now have evacuation routes and drills. People are educated about the risks. Yungay's survivors helped design these systems. They know what happens when you're unprepared. 3. Building codes. Peru updated construction standards. Buildings in seismic zones must now meet strict requirements. Hospitals, schools, and emergency facilities are built to withstand major earthquakes. 4. International cooperation. This disaster led to better global disaster response protocols. The United Nations Disaster Relief Organization was established partly in response to disasters like this. 5. Scientific research. Glaciologists and seismologists now study debris avalanches intensely. We understand the mechanics better. We can predict risk zones more accurately. But here's the hard truth. We still can't prevent these disasters. We can only prepare for them and try to minimize loss of life. The 1970 Ancash earthquake and the Yungay avalanche killed 70,000 people. It remains one of the deadliest natural disasters in the history of the Western Hemisphere. But here's what gets me. Most people have never heard of it. We remember Pompeii. We remember Krakatoa. We remember the 2004 tsunami. But 25,000 people buried under a mountain in 3 minutes? That story gets forgotten. I think we owe it to the people of Yungay to remember, to learn, to understand that nature is powerful, unpredictable, and sometimes merciless. The survivors of Yungay rebuilt. They created memorials. They educated the world about what happened. And that's why I'm telling you this story today. Because the mountain swallowed 20,000 people in 3 minutes. But their memory, that lasts forever. Final CTA. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment and let me know what disaster you want me to cover next. I read every single one. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.